Good afternoon, folks. Welcome to a wonderful presentation today with the Accounting Department for the Master's Program here at Bay Path University. I have Dr. Stevens on with us, and she will be discussing a wonderful topic today that's talking about the CPA and the pathway if this is what you decide that you want to do with yourself. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce Dr. Kara Stevens to the communications today. Hello.
Hi, thank you so much, Rashida, and thank you for those of you who are signing in live presently. Welcome. So today, what I want to talk about is these proposed changes that the AICPA and NASBA has made. These are in a proposal. However, it looks like this is something that is going to move forward. So I thought it was important to share this out to the community. We have online a library of resources where we've had these types of conversations surrounding the CPA exam itself, the different sections of the CPA, and so on. So this presentation is not meant to get into the detailed requirements to become a CPA or anything like that. It's really intended to inform you on these changes that are coming upon us, because for many of you who are in that world of deciding if you want to pursue the CPA, these will have an effect on some of the decisions that you make. So again, to share these out seemed very important. So let's get started. I plan to have this presentation be around 30 minutes and then allow time for questions. There will be an open chat box. So throughout the presentation, if you would like to put any comments in the chat, you can. And if Rashida, you don't mind taking a look at those, but most likely it will be the end where there's really the opportunity to really address all of those questions.
Absolutely. I'll be watching the chat box and letting you know.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So to get started, these changes that we are most likely seeing, they are proposed, but the rationale is to increase access to the accounting profession and address the ongoing talent shortages. So currently, what we are seeing in the United States, this is a nationwide talent shortage, is we are not seeing as many students in accounting programs. So this goes, right into that very entry level of deciding to become part of the accounting profession through obtaining an undergraduate degree in accounting. And that shortage is carrying through into the pipeline of a shortage within the accounting industry. And within that industry, we know that people very often look to pursue the CPA exam, so the Certified Public Accounting exam. So ultimately, that is where we're seeing a shortage, that there are not as many people sitting for the CPA exam. So I have a lot of data to support that. I did not include that in this presentation, and I'm happy to share it elsewhere, but the reason why these updates are most likely going to move forward is to address the shortage that we're seeing in the profession. And there are a lot of other reasons that this shortage is taking place aside from this. So I put this one bullet. I wanted to kind of focus on why we're seeing these particular proposals, but there are other factors that are contributing to the shortage. But a lot of the reports are saying that, I want to say part of the reason for the shortage is citing the cost and time of education required to become a CPA. And that needs to be fixed. So I'll just highlight a couple of other things. There are, compensation that is being looked at. There are work-life balance type of things that are being looked at as well to really ultimately make the profession a more attractive profession to become a part of. But what these proposals are aiming at is really that barrier to entry from an education standpoint. So again, previous videos go into a lot of the detail requiring what is required for education, but I'm going to move forward with what these updates entail. So the first update is really just a general update to the Uniform Accountancy Act. This is really what is needed to change in order to move forward with the second update that I'll talk in more detail about. So in order to make the second update, this first update needs to happen. So it's kind of like a legal piece of the puzzle to make these changes to the requirements to become a certified public accountant. This is still open for comments from the public. So this is really new. These updates, the proposals came out right at the beginning of fall, and they're still open for comment. So we're really in a live time frame where people from industry are commenting, people from academia are commenting, people from outside of those fields are able to comment on whether or not they agree with these updates. The second update, so what would happen with if this proposal were to move forward? It allows each state to move forward with this competency-based experienced pathway, which I'll talk about. Currently, each state has its own jurisdiction. So we talk about the jurisdictions here. So Massachusetts is considered a jurisdiction, every single state along the path. So each state is able to determine the pathway to become a CPA outside of taking the exam itself. So every state requires the exam. There are 4 parts of the exam, but each state is able to determine what is needed to sit for the exam and to become certified for the exam. So because of this, the Uniform Accountancy Act is trying to allow for more of a consistency in what we would do moving forward, but it still comes down to each state being able to ultimately decide if they're going to adopt these proposals. Based on my reading and communications with these agencies, most people are generally in favor of these proposals to move forward. And again, going back to the rationale of finding ways to increase that pipeline into the accounting profession of CPAs. So again, this first proposal allows for states to move forward with this competency-based experience pathway, which I'll talk about. It protects the seamless interstate practice for CPAs. So this is very interesting because, let's say, for example, I am a licensed CPA in the state of Massachusetts. I pay Massachusetts a licensing fee every 2 years. I maintain my continuing education and submit that for evaluation to the state of Massachusetts. So it's a Massachusetts CPA license that I have, but because of the way there's reciprocity between each state, I can be a practicing CPA in any state, but I have to go through their board of accountancy. I don't have to retake the exams. I don't have to go through all of the requirements to become a CPA. All I need to do is really apply for a license in a different state, and most often that license would be granted. You pay the fees and so on. So this is something that we definitely want to protect, because having CPAs need to take an exam, multiple exams, in every state that they want to practice does not make sense for the profession. There are CPAs who have clients, that they're serving in multiple states. So we need to allow for that interstate practice and protect that, because it's really vital. So that all falls under the proposal to protect that. because that is in place currently. That's not part of the proposal. This just allows for the protection of it. Specify the education requirements to sit for the CPA exam and clarify the process by which a CPA can practice under mobility. So this is another interesting nuance to this in terms of this state reciprocity because of where you're practicing, where your clients might be, and so on. So this falls under this change. This is the update that I really want to focus on because I think this is where you as future CPAs and students who are considering going into the CPA profession, again, are going to be most impacted. So in the AICPA and NASBA have released this proposal draft for this competency-based experience pathway. So what this pathway would allow is for CPA candidates to demonstrate their skills through workplace experience after earning a bachelor's degree and fulfilling state-specified course requirements. And again, this model would be available if the states adopt the proposal that we saw in update number 2. So update number 1 needs to happen first, right? That needs to be passed. And then this update number 2 will be allowable. So this is, as I said, in exposure draft. The ultimate decision has not been made yet. The exposure draft was released in September. And for this particular pathway, the comment period is open until December 6th. So if this is an area that you're interested in commenting on, I have commented on it. You are able to contribute to the series of comments when the proposal is looked at and decided upon by the AICPA and NASBA. So under this pathway, we can kind of now picture this pathway of 2 paths. The first pathway is to maintain the existing requirements. So under the current pathway, and I'll talk specifically about the state of Massachusetts, but at this point, almost every state, I think it's safe to say every state, has required this 150 credit requirement for CPA licensure, meaning you complete your undergraduate degree and you need these additional 30 hours of coursework. The 30 hours did not mandate that it would have to be of master's degree level. If you obtained the accounting requirements in your undergraduate degree, the additional 30 credits could be really in anything you want. There was not like a direct correlation that the additional 30 hours needed to be in accounting. Most students, to obtain the additional 30 hours, have pursued master's degrees, and most often in accounting or a related field, because that would make sense. The Master's of Science degree at Bay Path University is designed to help students with the CPA exam. It's aligned directly to the sections of the CPA exam. So that pathway still exists, and I will even talk more about why this is still a very strong pathway. So we're not saying that, you know, this still remains, and it is still a very, very strong pathway, and I'll talk about that. But the new pathway, and this is what's in the new proposal, this would allow candidates to earn the CPA by completing a bachelor's degree. So meeting the state-specific accounting and business course requirements. So if you are completing a bachelor's degree in accounting, and let's say you do that at Bay Path, your undergraduate degree is in accounting. In the state of Massachusetts, you've actually met the accounting requirements, the way that Bay Path's undergraduate program is designed. So under this proposal, in this pathway, there is not a requirement for you to obtain the additional 30 credits to get to that 150 credit requirement. So this is going to be the tricky part, because we're not just saying completing a bachelor's degree in anything. right? There are still going to be very specific accounting requirements, accounting course and business course requirements in order to have all of your undergraduate credits count. The piece that's being removed from this pathway is that 30 credit requirement. So if you are somebody who your undergraduate degree is not in accounting, it is very unlikely, right, that you would have met the accounting requirements, at least say as they currently stand in the state of Massachusetts. So even though you don't need the additional 30 credits under this new pathway, you're still going to need specific accounting classes. So there is still a need for a Master's of Science in Accounting, especially I'd say for people who don't have an undergraduate degree in accounting. So I don't want this new proposal and this new pathway to confuse people that now, oh, all I need is an undergraduate degree to sit for the exam and become certified. That was technically always the case. The additional 30 credits that we saw under this pathway, number one, never said you needed a graduate degree. It's just, well, if you need these additional 30 credits, why not have them be of graduate degree level, right? Because an undergrad is 120 credits, and now most master's in science degrees in accounting are 30 credits. So you still may need an additional 30 credits from an undergraduate bachelor's degree. Let's say you have it in psychology or criminal justice, or even sometimes just general business, won't get you enough accounting and business classes to meet the state specific requirements. So by no means, again, am I saying, you know, you don't need additional coursework. It's just, you don't need it in terms of getting to that 150 credit mark. So instead, what they are saying is if you have a bachelor's degree and you've met all of these accounting and business course requirements, and currently these vary wildly from state to state, what these accounting and business course requirements, each state determines what those would be. They vary. Rashida and I were just having a conversation right before this with a prospective student who is in New York. And I'm really, you know, I always stay up on the Massachusetts requirements. I know those. I'm, again, a Massachusetts licensed CPA, so I went through it. I know what those requirements entail. New York, I don't know as well. I have to pull that up and actually see. Same thing for Connecticut. All of these surrounding states, even to Massachusetts, have different accounting and business course requirements. I don't know yet if under this new proposal, if we're going to see some consistency between the states. I would actually love to see that. That's part of my comment back to the AICPA and NASBA. But right now, you can't say, oh, I definitely need, you know, 4 accounting courses and, you know, XYZ, 1 in tax, 1 in audit, you know, all of that. If, you know, it varies. So that still remains. Then what they're saying, instead of focused on that additional 30 credits. So let's use the example of a Bay Path University undergraduate student has an undergraduate degree in accounting. I know that that undergraduate degree in accounting meets the state requirements in Massachusetts for the accounting and business course requirements. That student may not choose to pursue a master's degree, and instead they could gain 1 year of this competency-based experience. And this competency-based experience has a lot of layers to it. And I think this is where a lot of the comments are being focused on from what I'm reading, because what are the competencies that somebody should have, right, as experience requirements. So this is interesting. This is new. How do you assess competency? How is each state board going to assess competency? This is where a lot of, again, the comments are bubbling up, but I do, again, think we're going to get there to some competency-based framework. So I'm not prepared to speak about these specific competencies yet, because I think they're evolving, and I think the final outcome will be better to share once we see it. But just to know that this is part of the new pathway. And then you need another year of undefined experience, so of at least 2,000 hours, and then pass the exam. So what had happened before is you needed your academic requirements of 150 credits and meet all of the accounting. You still needed some experience. Most states still required some experience. And also you have to pass the 4 parts of the CPA exam. So the new piece is really, again, this competency-based experience. Some of the comments that I've read and that I support would be that this competency-based experience is working under a CPA, right? So if you are working already in the field and you're working under a CPA, and you're doing some specific types of accounting work, that would be appropriate. Right now, the way the competencies are written are very, very vague, probably on purpose so that they're easier to evaluate. So again, we'll see more come of this, but the takeaway is this second pathway, you do not have to obtain that additional 30 hours. And you instead need to be focused on this competency-based experience, and also complete the 1 year of additional experience. Undefined, again, I think we're going to see that kind of tightened up with more of a understanding of what that entails. But we're looking at 2 years, right, of experience. So we're really boiling this down to say an undergraduate degree, you need to have some specific accounting and business courses. You need 2 years of experience, 1 year focused on these competencies, 1 year on some other level of experience, and you need to pass the 4 parts of the CPA exam. So that is what the new pathway is saying. What, again, the AICPA and NASPA think is that by removing that 30 credit requirement, more CPAs or candidates would consider the profession by, again, removing that barrier. Now, I want to add one other piece just for clarification. Sitting for the CPA exam is not changing. So the current stance for Massachusetts, or here, I should say it's not changing in Massachusetts. So in Massachusetts, you can sit for the CPA exam with your 120 credit hours with specific accounting and business courses in place, right? So you can sit for the exam. The rule was to become certified. That's when you needed the additional 30 credits. The proposal is saying that they'll allow all candidates to sit for the CPA exam. So it wouldn't just be state by state, where some states you can sit at 120, some states you have to wait until you had your 150, and so on. So under this, the second proposal with the pathway, it's also saying candidates essentially could sit earlier. So especially in the states that were not letting candidates sit until they had their 150 credit hours, they are allowing students to now sit for the exam earlier, right? As soon as you complete your undergraduate degree, you can sit for the exam right away. I'll say when I was sitting for the CPA exam, Massachusetts hadn't changed the rule to being able to sit at 120. So I had to wait to even sit for the exam not even to become certified. I had to wait to even take my first part of the exam until I had the 150 hours. So I can actually see how even that small barrier is pushing CPAs back, right? So again, I could not sit for the CPA exam when I first graduated. Then it took 2 years for me to complete my master's degree, and I couldn't sit until I had all of that done. So then I'm a third year in my accounting profession. By this time, I have staff. I want to be promoted. I can't be promoted until I have the CPA. And now I'm studying for the CPA, which for me took, another year and a half. So I like how Massachusetts currently has theirs designed where you can sit earlier. You don't have to, wait. So I do think that this will help people start to sit for the exam earlier, potentially. So let me summarize. I have kind of a takeaway of where I think this all brings us to kind of the future. And then we can take some questions. So in summary, right, the current rules generally require 150 college credit hours. So effectively a fifth year that some say dampens students' interest in the profession to become a CPA. I want to give you the facts. I have a different stance on some of this, but under the new alternative, candidates would need a bachelor's degree, but those not interested in the fifth year of college work could choose 2 additional years of accounting relevant work, right? So what we're saying here in this summary is now you can sit for the exam as soon as you graduate undergrad. You can be working, gaining these 2 years of accounting work, and then that would, let's say you graduate in May, undergrad, and you pass the exam, these 4 parts really right away, within 4 months. It's not likely, but possible, right? You pass. You cannot become a CPA right then because you need 2 years of accounting work. So this is where I think a lot of the decision making needs to come into play, especially at an undergraduate level. When you graduate, you have control of that additional 30 credits. I think a lot of people are still going to need the additional accounting and business credits anyways. So I would encourage students to still pursue a master's degree, because if you still need 25, 30 credits of accounting and business courses and you don't have those, why, take more undergraduate classes when you can, obtain a master's degree, which is still very recognized within the profession, right? A master's degree in accounting still carries a lot of weight in the profession. The reason, again, why this is being done is to try to get students moving through this pipeline more quickly, becoming certified more quickly, maintaining an interest in the profession. So when I shared my experience of needing to wait all of that time before I could even sit for the exam, right? I mean, that's a lot, almost 3 years to even sit for the exam is a long time, right? So we can see how students could lose interest in that space. And then if finances and other things, prevent students as really like a barrier to entering the profession because of costs of degrees and things like this, we can see how that could deter somebody from becoming a CPA as well. So again, this would entail the 1 year of certified work experience. When we talk about certified work experience, this, again, I put this in there, but this is not, I think a lot of this will evolve, but using accounting, attestation, compilation, management advisory, financial advisory, tax, or consulting work, and an additional year of general experience. So this kind of carves out a little bit more of what that 2 years entail. But it's 1 year of very specific accounting work. So again, some students might just choose to just stay on the education path, get the 150 credits. You don't need to worry about, meeting these competencies within the profession. If you don't have the accounting or business classes anyways from an undergraduate degree, and you want to become a CPA, you're going to need additional credits anyways, which I encourage it to be of master's level. So we talk about what does this actually mean for the future. When I think about even the future of Masters of Science in Accounting programs, the future of CPAs, the future of the accounting profession, here's the facts. There's a shortage of accountants in the United States. There is still growth in this field. So not only is there a shortage, there's still a projection of more jobs opening over the next 10 years. So the good news is accountants are in demand, right? So if this is a profession that you are considering, we've seen really since 2020 a lot of career changers where they're working in a different profession and now want to be more in the financial services field, and accounting is a solid career path. When I see data like this, it gets me very, very excited about the future of the profession, that this is not, and I almost pulled in a bunch of slides about why accounting isn't going away. That can be another presentation at another time, or why AI isn't going to replace accountants. You may see reports like that. Sure, there is work that accountants do that AI can replace, but it's all the more need for skilled accountants to do the high level work that AI will never be able to do. And because of that, this is where there's this kind of balance, right? We need the accountants, so we're going to, in a way, dilute the education requirement to become a CPA, but we're going to replace it with competency work, which is certainly valuable, and I can support that. But then we have all of these new demands that accountants are going to need to be ready for in the workplace, where very often those increased skills are taught in master's programs, because an undergraduate program really does, really help with understanding accounting, right? Reading financial statements, journal entries, and so on. But a master's degree is really that next level of, I think, these areas that accountants are going to need to be they need to be strong in, like data analytics in particular. So by no means is a Master's of Science in Accounting program going away. I think, again, this allows for students to think through more options. And I'm a big fan of options for students in choosing a pathway that makes sense for you. I will say at Bay Path, especially for students who are in that career change type mode, we work with students very closely to make sure that they don't have to do another undergraduate degree, right, to meet the requirements, say, for the CPA exam. I want students to be able to have an undergrad in whatever it was, in history, in psychology, and be able to, if you choose that you want to pursue a career path in accounting, that you can still come into the MSA program and learn what you need to know for the CPA exam, and as a well-rounded accountant. So our program at BayPath still supports the proposals. I support the proposal in the grand scheme. I do not think that the MSA program at any school will go away. I think we'll see a little bit of a just shift as information is provided and so on. But say if you are listening to this video and you're kind of not sure where you fall, what pathway you should do or take, you do want to be a CPA, but you're just not sure, I would encourage you to reach out directly to Rashida or myself to start the conversation. And hopefully you can kind of take away from me that I'm always going to help students understand kind of both paths and the pros and cons of both. And I would never have a student unnecessarily pursue a degree when maybe another pathway is the best choice for them. But again, there are choices now when there weren't, and I appreciate that. So I am going to open it up for any questions now. I know that that was a lot of information, and again, we're in a proposal stage of this work. I feel strongly that this is going to move forward, and if these the exposure drafts are approved, we would see these changes in the first quarter of 2025. So this is real time. I don't think we're going to see a lot of delay, especially because of the issues that we're seeing in the shortage in that pipeline of accountants that, again, it's a nationwide issue, and we need to address it. So I will open it up for any questions now, and feel free to type those, excuse me, right in the chat.
I know one of the questions I always am asked when I talk to a student is why BayPath, and what are the programs that I need to take to become a CPA? Should I do the public accounting or the data analytics? So I think that's always a big question, because sometimes you'll have someone that wants to do forensics, but once we actually round it up, they actually end up with data analytics if they're working in banking or something of that. So what would you suggest? Why do we still want to go for those 30 credits with BayPath?
Right, that's a great question. And I think we were getting a lot of those credits even before this pathway has been introduced, right? That's a common question. What concentration should I choose? And as we know, the BayPath degree, the Master's of Science in Accounting degree, has a core. So of the 30 credits, there are 7 courses that are part of the core. And then you get to choose essentially a pathway of the career that you want to go into. So Rashida and I typically have conversations with students. If you are considering the CPA exam and you have not met the accounting requirements from an undergraduate degree or the business requirements, the public accounting concentration is the path to go, right, in our degree, because it's going to give you those additional classes like audit and tax that are heavily tested still on the CPA exam, whereas the degree paths in forensics or finance or data analytics will not give you those specific courses. So this is where I think it's important for students to have those conversations with Rashida and myself to help clarify, because I think, like I said, I appreciate choices, and the master's degree at BayPath allows for those choices and gets you to think about, well, what area of accounting do I want to go into? And if you don't want to go into public accounting, and you want to be more in corporate accounting, well, these changes that we're talking about related to the CPA really don't impact you at all, right? So then I would probably then suggest doing more of a finance concentration or a data analytics concentration, depending on the size that you want to, of the company that you want to go to, or the industry that you really would like to be a part of. So I think, Rashida, to the point that you're getting with a lot of questions that you're hearing from our students, we know BayPath is a small private university. When you call and want to know more about the MSA degree at BayPath, you are going to be connected to Rashida. Rashida and I talk with each other. We email. She'll say, I have a student who, could you talk with them? So the good news is we are here to help, but we're not in this cookie cutter mode at BayPath where, we have this degree and here's the way you're going to do it. We give you choices. We want to understand the area of accounting you want to go into, and does this degree actually make sense for you? So those are the types of conversations that I know Rashida and I have a lot with students. And if you are a prospective student listening to this, again, and your mind's kind of spinning even with this new information, just have a conversation with us and we can talk more specifically about your own individual situation and, looking at your undergraduate, what your future plans are, and have the conversation. Does a Master's of Science in Accounting degree make sense for you? And if so, what area would you like to go into? What concentration? And those are the important conversations that we have up front with students before you even start the program.
Absolutely. And you are very supportive to all of the students. So I know another question that is asked is when it comes to completing the program, I always get, well, can I do it in a year? Can I do it in 2 years? And I can actually say, I just had a student that is close to finishing, and he actually called me and was like, I love the program. Thank you so much. And I was so impressed with it. So can you explain a little bit how this aligns with them, especially if they're doing the 2-year change of what's coming up with them now if they go for the CPA exam?
Right. So we have students that I think even with this change, even if they have the undergraduate degree in accounting, will still want to pursue a master's degree. I think we're in this interesting time frame where you currently have the older generation who are near retirement, and even I'd say the generation below that. So my kind of age group of CPAs had to get the master's degree, right? I needed the 150 credits. I appreciate that process. The other generation, I'm not quite sure that there's an appreciation for it. So when we think about the master's program and should you pursue it, how long should it take, what path should I go down, this becomes part of the conversation. So what Rashida is mentioning is completing the master's in 1 year or 2 years. Like I said, I like to give students the opportunity to choose. So our program is flexible enough that if you want to accelerate the master's degree and you don't want that delay in time before you sit for the exam, you can start our program essentially as soon as you graduate from an undergraduate degree and be done within the next 8 months. Because when I designed this program, recognized the need for accelerated degrees in this space because of everything that we're seeing in a nationwide crisis of shortages of CPAs. So I don't view the MSA at BayPath to really being a barrier to the time frame of when you can complete the amount of credits and sit for the exam. I am actually, curious in how this all evolves, that you might be able to do it more quickly, right? There might be an opportunity to start the Master's of Science in Accounting at Bay Path and complete it and sit for the exams and complete those all before the 2-year work experience requirement is, so our program allows for that accelerated degree path, but it also allows, especially focused on CPA candidates. That was designed specifically because there were firms who would not even hire students until they had the 150 credits, who would not hire students until they completed the exam. There were all sorts of things to create an accelerated program. But our program has the option for a 2-year track where we have students who are obtaining funding from their employer. Maybe they can only take one class per session, or because of work demands and personal demands, cannot take 2+ classes if you're in an accelerated track, right? So we allow for that. We allow for that option and that choice, and that's very important in any path you want to go down for accounting, whether it's a CPA, and that's not the only path. This presentation is focused really on that CPA exam, but that is certainly not the only pathway for accountants from a career standpoint, which is why we have our concentrations.
Definitely. Well, I thank you for answering that. This was a wonderful presentation, very informative. I love your presentations. So
Thank
they
you.
give a lot of information, especially for the CPA students and the CMA students that are looking for their licensures. So I definitely love this, and we will definitely be posting this on online so everyone can get this information. And as always, I always thank you for coming and talking to us about these topics.
Thank you so much for setting this up. And again, for those students who are watching this now or asynchronously, and you have more questions about even just the proposed changes and the impact on you, even if you're not sure that you need to pursue an MSA degree or any of that, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to talk through that with you, even just as a CPA in the industry. I really want to share my knowledge in that space and be as helpful as possible. But then, of course, if you are also interested in the Master's of Science in Accounting degree, that's another area to certainly reach out to Rashida and I, and we'd love to walk you through the process. So thank you all. Happy Friday. And
Happy Friday.
yes, enjoy the rest of the day.
Yes, and our next start day will be March 3rd. If anyone is looking to meet with either of us and talk about the accounting master's program, we would love to talk to you for more information. And we'll definitely attach all of our contact information as I send everything out later on, either today or on Monday for everyone. And if you have any questions, we look forward to talking to you. And thank you for attending our presentation.